geopolitical. Let me welcome into the broadcast Ravi Karkara is joining us, Bharat Barai on the broadcast with us, Dr. Saturu Nagao on the broadcast, and General J.K. Bansal joining us. Dr. Bharat Barai, let me bring you in on a different note. There seems to be some sort of understanding that a very pragmatic reassociation has to happen on issues like migration and on tariffs, and we need to get them out of the way. What do you expect coming out of this conversation?
See, the issue of tariff and the issue of illegal migration, we knew that it was going to come up, and it is not just for India, it's for many other countries that it affects. Now, there are many aspects of relationship between India and USA, and these are two areas on which we don't have full concordance. For example, United States feels that there are more import duties, as we call it, which is another name for tariff, by India, and India needs to lower those tariffs and allow more US products to come. They did talk about Tesla cars, they did talk about Harley Davidson and many other things. So India will have to try to give in something, or they are going to face reciprocal tariff, because US president feels that we should have an even trade, and India has a $45.7 billion surplus in trade with USA 2022, 23 and 24. As far as illegal immigration is concerned, let me give you a different other perspective also, which unfortunately is not talked about. Yes, there are about 17,000 illegal Indians in detention, and Pew Research estimate that there are about 700,000 illegal Indian immigrants. But we forget that there are 5.5 million legal people of Indian origin, citizens, green card holders, H-1B visa holders, as well as student visa holders. And there are about 5 million people in India who hold long-term visa to come to United States. So we should not forget at the interest of 10.5 million law-abiding legal visa holders or residents or green card holders or citizens of Indian origin as far as USA is concerned, and not focus unduly on few thousand illegals who came. Now, yes, I would not like to see somebody handcuffed and deported out. There should be maybe a little better way to deport them out, but no country should allow illegals to come in their country, and United States is fully justified in trying to get these people out. And they are not just getting people of Indian origin out.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's estimated that there are about 11 million illegal immigrants living in USA.
No, Dr. Barai, as you know, as you and I well know, India also has an illegal immigration problem. We have serious concerns about illegal immigration from Myanmar, from Bangladesh and other places. We haven't cracked a formula on how to deal with it for sure. There's a lot of controversy which somehow becomes global controversy if we even try to document illegal immigration. We know what happened with the NRC and the CA in India. It became an international issue, believe it or not. But Dr. Barai, assuming that we have open mind on these issues and we can say, all right, we're going to work with the US on the tariffs and reducing the trade deficit. We're going to work on accepting more illegal immigrants back. What next?
Well, next we probably should see a big defense deal, because United States needs to export more top-of-the-notch equipment. And we know from the recent use of Israeli equipment that United States has probably top-of-the-line equipment. For example, there are 100 Israeli, mostly F-13 fighters that went over Iraq and bombed them, and Iraq could not shoot down any one of them. In fact, most of the Russian S-300 missiles, which were kept there for air defense, they were all knocked out. So we know that United States makes some of the top-notch defense equipment, and we need it. Our Air Force is very short of number of squadrons that are needed, almost 42 of them. So we could utilize the drones, we could utilize the fighter aircraft, we could utilize some of the submarines, though most of them are coming from France. We can have Apache helicopters, so we can have a lot of top-notch defense equipment that can be imported from USA, as well as co-manufactured like General Electric engines.
Yes.
As far as other trade is concerned, semiconductors, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So all those things could be beneficial to India.
In fact, it'll be odd if there is no conversation on artificial intelligence, given all the conversations that are happening. I promise you, Sam Altman was in India last week to hold meetings here just a few days after announcing that Operation Stargate, which is a $500 billion AI plan supported between, our definition of public-private partnership. But let me get Adrian Calamel back in. Adrian, assuming that the bilateral issues and we see the big ticket defense agreement and we see that we're going to buy the planes and the jet engines and the UAVs, and there's going to be significant reduction in Indian tariffs, we are going to invest more in the US, all excellent. Let's assume we get this done in the next hour and we set a really positive note. Having set the positive note, what's the agenda after that?
Well, the agenda after that is simply to build on this and continue to counter. Everybody's been talking about countering China. We can't just compartmentalize China. We have to understand that the Islamic Republic of Iran, Moscow, and Beijing all coordinate together. And so we have to have a holistic policy that's going to address all of them. So I would hope that the United States as well as India would get on a foreign policy page that looks at those actors as well, and then the actors that support them, the Qatars of the world, the Caracases, the Islamabads, and those type of countries. So from a foreign policy perspective, that's what I would hope would happen.
Have we lost focus on the war on terror in the past 10 years or so?
Well, I would say so. When you have the president saying that the Taliban are your counterterrorism partners in Afghanistan, I think not only have you lost it, you've lost the plot. So I think there's a grave concern, rightfully so. Hamza bin Laden is alive. He's not dead, as the CIA said back in 2019. So, yeah, there is a gathering storm that I think people should absolutely be worried about. And I know that the CIA, you look at Christopher Wray from the FBI, he was terrified at his briefings before he eventually left office.
Okay, so Adrian, give us a bigger picture to again contextualize whatever conversations are happening, because just in the last few months, we've seen a dramatic turn of events in Syria, all right? There's a regime there that no longer exists. We've seen high drama in Lebanon for all sorts of intents and purposes. We don't see any culmination in Gaza anytime soon. What is actually going on? Because when we say trade is the future, IMEC requires the Abraham Accords to follow through. Where do those stand right now?
Well, where it stands and where the Trump administration stands and where the Middle East stands right now is the maximum pressure campaign is back in place. The sanctions are going to be enforced on the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic gave the green light to Hamas. They continue to support Hamas. Supported Hezbollah, which has been defanged to a great degree. The Houthis are next on the list. So, and then you drain the foreign currency reserves, which will happen. The maximum pressure under the first Trump administration was only from 2018 to 2020, drained them down to $4 billion in currency reserves. That's the money that pays the Houthis. That's the money that pays the Badr organization, PMF, all the individuals, all the groups that cause chaos in the region and then capitalize on it.
All right. So let me just take a last word on Jordan on this before I let him go, and then I'm going to open Mr. Karkara into this conversation as well. So Jordan, just contextualize this issue, because for people watching the broadcast, when we say IMEC, okay, IMEC means that the port of origin for transshipment and goods is in India, right? But then it has to go through Dubai, then over land, traversing almost all of Saudi Arabia. It'll have to go through Jordan. It'll have to then go through Israel, end up in the Haifa port, and then enter the Mediterranean. That's IMEC. For that to work, there have to be the Abraham Accords. Now, we were very close to this, maybe just a year and a half ago. Where are we now, Jordan Cope?
It's a big question that remains yet to be answered. Josh Hammer from Newsweek, according to sources that he had in the US government, suspected that at the beginning of the Biden presidency and the end of the Trump presidency, we were approximately 3 to 4 months away from realizing peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia, which was ultimately disrupted by American policies that I would argue betrayed our Saudi Arabian ally, and then further postponed, even though American relations did get better over time, further postponed by the October 7th terrorist attacks by Hamas, by the Islamic Jihad, and by what many don't know, also the PFLP was also involved in those attacks. That created so much turmoil in the Middle East. It made it politically awkward for Saudi Arabia at the time to further commence with a deal. But hopefully we'll be
Jordan,
seeing
I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're expecting the press briefing to start very, very shortly. Quick word from Ravi Karkara in. Mr. Karkara, what are you hoping to hear?
To hear a strong partnership on manufacturing. I mean, very much on Make in America, which is a very clear sentiment here. And what can we really learn from Make in India? I think Bharatji has also really advocated a lot for looking at this partnership, especially on the AI front. We're really looking at how AI becomes a very critical force. I think America, India, that's what Modi ji said in one of his interviews. And America, India's AI, and AI is driving the fifth industrial revolution.
Okay, so where's the confluence of interest, Ravi Karkara, since you know the expert on the subject, the data, India has got data. 1.4 billion of us generating data like heck. We can potentially build the data centers as well, but we don't have the hard infrastructure yet for the AI. How can we be players in this?
I think that's really coming, and if you look at all the partnerships that are coming through, really from the American investors, I think this is going to be one of the very high on the agenda. Data centers will need to be in a reliable location. And I think also data center that needs to be sustainable. This is my everyday work. And I think for us, the transfer, and this is what I think one of the speakers said, I think India, along with just applying the AI skilled workforce, but for really India to develop its model and its core work around AI, we need the American technology in that partnership. The irony here is that many AI forces here also from the Indian descent, which I think is a great advantage for us to come together, because I think this partnership and the announcement along with geopolitics and other areas that you talked about, I think AI-driven manufacturing research will drive the fifth industrial. We know that. So data center are going to be in the center of it. And also the whole controversy, just to conclude with DeepSeek, it has to be reliable, secure locations. And I think that's where the partnership of India and USA on AI is absolutely essential.
So I know it's arguable whether we are actually doing in India frontline LLM or artificial general intelligence research, where we are anywhere there yet, because on the face value of it, no. But then we have people like Arvind Srinivas building Perplexity. So the second you can argue that yes, they are converting this into real world use and creating billion-dollar companies, all dealing with AI. Let me get some images on our screens, ladies and gentlemen. Here you have it. That's the Modi-Trump meeting in progress on your screens over there. You can see the Indian delegations. You can see NSA Doval there, Ambassador Jaishankar there as well. The translators are there sitting at the back, and of course the US Secretary of State sitting as well. So that's the meeting that's happened. Yes, there's going to be a press briefing. A few words have been exchanged in front of the cameras. A closed door briefing is underway, and yes, there will be a press briefing immediately after this. Let me get General Bansal into this conversation. General Bansal, we are almost for certain expecting a big ticket defense deal, perhaps the first sale agreement in principle of fighter jets from the United States of America. India operates a fleet of Russian-made, French-made, and now Indian-made jets. No American jets in the Indian Air Force fleet so far. Do we expect them to be coming our way shortly?
Good morning. There has been a lot of discussion about the F-35 and Su-57 that India should go with, for which one there has been debates, and they both has got their own merits and demerits. The F-35 is definitely an offensive type of aircraft, which can, while the Su-57 is a defensive type. Now, it is a very stealth type aircraft which is available, but its cost is very high. It is almost 60% more than the Su-57. That is one of the reasons. that yes, and moreover, the technology transfer, whether they will agree for that or not, this is going on to be a very big thing. But as such, we are getting so many defense equipment from
Okay. So,
US.
General Bansal, we've got the howitzers. We are buying other armored carriers. We are buying UAVs. We've already got the choppers. All right. So it's inevitable. Yes, fighter jets. The biggest issue, not necessarily the price. The biggest issue, as you mentioned, is technology transfer. India does not make a jet engine. It's the biggest concern for a major country, let alone a major defense purchaser. Do you expect progress on that front? Will we get technology transfer? Will GE come and make that jet engine in India?
Definitely, we are expecting that. This was a deal made in 2023 itself, and between GE and our HAL. So that will come up. Why I was telling, because this was mentioned, I think, by Mr. Bharat, that we need 42 squadron and we are having only around 30. So there is a large number of and finance is required for everything. Definitely one has to keep in mind. And I was talking about that, yes, we are getting 31 MQ-9 Reaper drones, which is $3.3 billion deal.
Yes.
We are having these helicopters, Apache helicopters, we are having assault rifles, we are having howitzer, very light guns which are used in the mountain. So we are having the Globemaster carrier aircraft. We are having the special aircraft, Herculean type, which can be as a special airlift. So many.
Okay. So expect it very shortly. Expect a big ticket defense account announcement. I have it on good authority that it is almost inevitable. It's going to happen. We're going to talk about big ticket announcements, not only of commercial investment by Indian firms into the US, perhaps in the steel industry and other places. We are going to see an announcement of a reduction in tariffs on various products, from Indian tariffs of US products being exported into India. For sure, we are going to see a defense announcement on some fact. Now, how big the deal will be, I promise you, money is not the problem. The problem is technology transfer. India mandates that a percentage of the aircraft after the first deliveries have to be not only jointly produced in India, but there has to be a certain percentage of technology transfer built into the contract. That's the sticking point. It's not like we don't like the aircraft, it's not like we don't want the aircraft, or it's not like we can't afford the aircraft. That's the problem. Okay, hold that thought. Let me get a different perspective from Dr. Nagao joining us on the broadcast. Dr. Nagao, thank you. And I know it'll be a very odd hour for you as well. If you are in Japan, if you're in the US, then it's an odd hour for us because it's 4 in the morning here in New Delhi as we're having this conversation. Let's shift focus to the Indo-Pacific, because the first meeting that was held after the Trump swearing in was a quad meeting of foreign ministers. Right now, we are discussing tariffs, we are discussing migration. When do you expect the focus will be back on the Indo-Pacific?
It is interesting. President Trump chose 4 leaders met this month. First one is Israel, next one is Japan, third one Jordan, and fourth one now Modi, India. So this means that he focusing on Middle East and Indo-Pacific. So generally, the US president meets the British as a first foreign guest. But this time, it is not. He focusing on this area. So view from this, his strategy is clearly revealed in this process. Firstly, he tried to solve the problem in Middle East and Europe, and he want to relocate the resources to the Indo-Pacific. So view from this order indicate that. So that's why this is a big picture President Trump focusing on. And this is a good chance for India, Japan, or other country in the Indo-Pacific.
So Dr. Nagao, from the UK, Nigel Farage of all people was invited to the Trump inaugural, and of course the British Prime Minister was not there. Yes, the Chinese president was invited. He sent a representative who was there. So there has going to be engagement. So Dr. Nagao, assuming that the priority number 1 and the conversation number 1 or the argument number 1 is going to be on tariffs with China. That's where the focus right now is. When does it come and shift to security issues, which we know are very real from where you and I are sitting?
Without solving issue in the Middle East and Europe, the United States cannot concentrate their resources to the Indo-Pacific to counter China. So that's why the trade war has already happened, and the President Trump is using two types of tariff: negotiable tariff and non-negotiable tariff. For example, when President Trump declared to impose tariff to the three countries, Canada, Mexico, and China, in this case, it looks like all of the three are one category of tariff, but it is not true, because tariff on Canada and tariff on Mexico are negotiable tariff, but tariff on China is non-negotiable. So that's why only the China's one is imposing now. And the other two, imposing on Canada, imposing on Mexico, still under negotiation. So tariff will impose any country in the world because America first for the President Trump. But at the same time, indeed, tariff on China is special, completely different. US need to win the competition with China. That's why this is a tool.
Okay.
This is a tool for battle.
Okay, so let's contextualize this. Ambassador Kapoor, let's now go back to the big elephant in the room in the Oval Office right now, because I know that might not be the immediacy of the conversation. But Donald Trump knows it, Narendra Modi for sure knows it, you and I know it, it's China. So the grand tariff war ain't going to happen with India, it's going to happen with the Chinese. The Chinese are already threatening to cut off pretty much the entire world's rare earth supplies. And then of course that's on the economic front. On the strategic and security front, Mr. Ambassador Kapoor, where do you see it going?
Well, I guess it is going to go in a very positive direction on all the fronts, including the economic front and the political front, because when two such leaders meet, the primary discussions take place on politics and geopolitics, then on the economy, then on the trade aspects, then on the military cooperation, then on geostrategic cooperation, and then on the other issues. So I think there's a lot of common grounds between India and US. Also, if you realize, Rishabh, the Indian economy is the primary driver of the global economy currently. It's growing at the fastest pace for any country. And the Indian market is expanding at a massive rate. And the Indian defense market is also a very important market for the Americans. So for the Americans to also look at the other aspects of economy is very important. In terms of geopolitics and geostrategy, the greatest threats which the Americans are facing, of course, is from China and from global terrorism and jihadi terrorism. And that is the same threat which India is facing. So there's a lot of convergence on that also. And those are also going to be very important issues. The collaboration between India and the US now needs to be increased in multiple fronts.
Okay.
And instead of just 2+2 ministerial meetings, probably the next step will be, 4+4 or even 6+6 ministerial meetings between the India and the US.
So, but are we further away, or because China has its own problems right now, okay, very serious domestic, economic, populational, other problems for whatever little bit of information leaks out. But are we closer to a crisis in Taiwan, closer to a crisis between Japan and can we listen in? Can we listen in to what's being said?
मैं कह सकता हूं कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के पहले 4 वर्ष का मेरा जो अनुभव था, जो गर्मजोशी थी, जो उत्साह था, जो विश्वास था, वही गर्मजोशी, वही उत्साह, वही विश्वास के साथ हम फिर एक बार साथ मिलकर के आगे बढ़ेंगे.
Last year, the people of India gave me the opportunity to serve them for the 3rd consecutive time, and it has happened in the history of India in the last 60 years for the first time. And in this term, I will have an opportunity to work with you over the next 4 years, and it's a great pleasure to see the two coincide. And I can say from my past experience of working with you in your first term that we will continue to advance the India-US strategic partnership with the same warmth, with the same trust, and with the same excitement.
और मेरे लिए खुशी की बात है कि आते ही राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने एक मित्र की तरह मुझे पुराने अहमदाबाद के स्टेडियम की याद दिलाई। ये बात सही है कि ह्यूस्टन में हाउडी मोदी और गुजरात में अहमदाबाद में नमस्ते ट्रम्प, वो दो एक ऐसी बहुत बड़े विशाल कार्यक्रम रहे जिसकी गूंज आज भी भारत के हर कोने में सुनाई दे रही है।
I'm happy that as soon as I entered this room, my friend reminded me of Ahmedabad and the cricket stadium where we held the big rally, and the events that we did, the mega events that we did in Ahmedabad, Namaste Trump, or the Howdy Modi in Houston. We had conveyed a very strong message of our friendship through those events, and the resounding echo of those events can be heard even today in India and the world.
भारत अमेरिका संबंधों को प्रगाढ़ बनाने में, उसको एक नई ऊंचाई देने में और व्यापकता देने में राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की पहली टर्म की बहुत बड़ी भूमिका रही है, और मुझे विश्वास है कि दूसरे टर्म में भी हम उसी गति से आगे बढ़ेंगे।
Excellency, you made immense personal contribution towards strengthening of our relations, towards making them more comprehensive, and in attaining unprecedented heights in our relationship. And I firmly believe that in your second term, we will work with even more speed.
और मैं जैसे भारत के नागरिकों को वादा किया है कि मैं तीसरे टर्म में 3 गुना गति से काम करूंगा, और मुझे विश्वास है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप के साथ आने वाले 4 वर्ष हम भारत अमेरिका के संबंधों की गति में 2 गुना गति से काम करेंगे।
As I had promised to the people of India that in my third term as the Prime Minister of India, we will work with thrice the speed. I firmly believe that with President Trump, during the next 4 years, during his second term, we will work with twice the speed that we did in the first term.
मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप से एक बात हमेशा अप्रिशिएट करता आया हूं, सीखता आया हूं कि वे राष्ट्रहित को सर्वोपरि रख कर के काम करते हैं। राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की तरह मुझे भी भारत के हितों को सर्वोपरि रखते हुए कार्य करना, ये मेरे लिए सौभाग्य की बात है।
One thing that I deeply appreciate and I learned from President Trump is that he keeps the national interest supreme, and like him, I also keep the national interest of India at the top of everything else, and this has been my real fortune.
राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप की जब भी बात आती है तब मेक अमेरिका ग्रेट अगेन हर किसी को याद आता है, हर किसी को उससे प्रेरणा मिलती है। वैसे ही भारत में विकसित भारत 2047, जब भारत की आज़ादी के 100 साल होंगे, तब तक भारत को विकसित बनाने के संकल्प के साथ 140 करोड़ देशवासियों का संकल्प, उसको आज नई गति मिल रही है, नई ऊर्जा मिल रही है।
President Donald Trump and Make America Great Again are inseparable. Whenever we talk about President Trump, one has to talk about Make America Great Again. Similarly, that vision inspires everybody. Similarly, in India, we have the resolve of 1.4 billion people of India that by the time India reaches the 100th anniversary of its independence, we will make our country a developed country by 2047. And this is getting new speed and new resolve.
अमेरिका विश्व का सबसे पुराना लोकतंत्र, भारत विशाल लोकतंत्र, और इसलिए हम दोनों का मिलने का मतलब 1+1 2 नहीं, 1 और 1 11 होता है, और ये 11 की तख्ती, वो ताकत विश्व के कल्याण के भी काम आएगी।
US is the world's oldest democracy, and India is the world's largest democracy. So when India and the US come together, they make 1+1 11 and not 2. And this is the power of 11 that is going to work for the welfare of the humanity.
मैं राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप का, मेरे एक अच्छे मित्र का हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं कि हम फिर से एक बार प्रगति की राह पर नई ऊंचाइयों को छूने के लिए चल पड़ेंगे।
I once again thank my friend President Trump, and we together resolve that we will together march towards progress and towards prosperity for our nations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And he's doing a great job in India. Everybody talks about it. He's doing A really fantastic job. A great leader. Great leader.
मोदी जी बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं भारत में और हर कोई इसकी बात कर रहे हैं कि वे बहुत बड़े नेता हैं, बहुत महान नेता हैं।
मैं आपका बहुत आभारी हूं आपके इन शब्दों के लिए और मुझे विश्वास है कि भारत का हर नागरिक आपकी इस भावना का आदर करता है।
I thank you for your warm words, Mr. President, and I firmly believe that every person in India respects your sentiments.
Thank you. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thanks a lot.
Any questions, please?
Yes, President.
You are both very popular leaders in your respective countries. You have spoken about a common sense diplomatic doctrine. So what's a Trump-Modi doctrine that we should expect from the meeting?
आप दोनों ही बहुत popular leaders
Make
हैं।
our words better and safer.
Well, I think more than anything else will be the unity. We have great unity. We have great friendship, he and I and our countries. And I think it's only going to get closer. But it's very important that we remain united as countries. We're friends and we're going to stay that way.
How are you going to fight China if you're going to be tough with India on trade? How are you going to beat China then?
We're in very good shape to beat anybody we want, but we're not looking to beat anybody. We're looking to do a really good job. We've done a fantastic job for the American people. We had a great 4 years, and we were interrupted by terrible administration, absolutely terrible. They didn't know what they were doing, and now we're putting it back together, and I think it's going to end up being much stronger than it was before, even much stronger than it was before.
प्रधानमंत्री जी आप हमेशा से
May I? Yeah. President Trump, first of all, congratulations for the fantastic 24 days of your presidency. Historic and unprecedented decisions that you made, transformational reforms. I'm particularly impressed by the expose on USAID. And I would like you to share with us if you think USAID had a role in election interference in the US in 2020 and Indian elections in 2024.
So it could have had a role. There were a lot of bad things that happened in 2020. I think bad things happened in 2024, but it was too big to rig. We won by a tremendous margin. We won every swing state. We won the popular vote by millions of votes. So it was too big to rig. But yeah, I think they probably tried. We're looking to go to a system now much different, where one-day voting, voter ID, and we have to do that. And paper ballots. We want paper ballots. And when they do that, we're going to clean it up very, very well. But we had a great 2016. We had a much better 2020 election, but bad things happened. And we had the best of all. We had, they say, the most consequential in history, 129 years. Most consequential. So it was a great election, and it gives me a chance to work again with the Prime Minister and India. And we're going to have a great relationship together.
Mr. President, do you see, प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है और युद्ध को रोकने की बात कही है. आप हमेशा से सर.
Do you see India playing a role in your plan to broker a peace in Ukraine? And if I could ask you about a development in your hometown today, the U.S. attorney has resigned over the DOJ's request to drop the case into Eric Adams. Did you personally request the Justice Department to drop that case?
No, I didn't. I know nothing about it. I did not. I think that, just to answer your other question, we're just going to get along well. We're going to get along with all countries. We're going to do very well. We're going to be doing, I think, record business, record numbers. And we're going to work with India also. We have some very big trade deals to announce in the very near future.
प्रधानमंत्री जी कल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप ने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से बात की है. आप दुनिया के अकेले ऐसे लीडर हैं जिन्होंने प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन से मीटिंग की है, प्रेसिडेंट जेलेंस्की से मीटिंग की है, पहले प्रेसिडेंट बाइडेन से मिले और अब प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप से मिले. आपको लग रहा है कि जिस शांति की बात आप करते आए थे उसमें अब भारत रूस और यूक्रेन को युद्ध खत्म कराने के लिए अमेरिका के साथ मिलकर कोई नया रास्ता बना सकता है? और दूसरा, प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप भारत आने वाले हैं, प्रेसिडेंट पुतिन भारत आने वाले हैं, तो क्या भारत भूमि से शांति का संदेश जा सकता है? And Mr. President, what you would like to say about the Bangladesh issue, because we saw and it is evident that how the deep state of United States was involved to regime change during the Biden administration. Then Muhammad Yunus made Junior Soros also. So what is your point of view about the Bangladesh?
And what is the role that the deep state played in the situation in Bangladesh?
Well, there was no role for our deep state. It was, this is something that the Prime Minister has been working on for a long time and has been worked on for hundreds of years, frankly. I've been reading about it. But I will leave Bangladesh to the Prime Minister.
जहाँ तक रूस और यूक्रेन के बीच का लड़ाई का सवाल है, मुझे खुशी है कि राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने शांति के प्रयासों का इनिशिएटिव लेते हुए कल राष्ट्रपति पुतिन से बात की है। दुनिया का एक सोच रही है कि भारत न्यूट्रल है। भारत न्यूट्रल नहीं है। भारत का अपना पक्ष है और भारत का पक्ष है शांति। हम पहले दिन से ही, और मैंने राष्ट्रपति पुतिन को उनकी मौजूदगी में मीडिया के सामने कहा था कि ये समय युद्ध का नहीं है, और मेरा एक कन्विक्शन है कि समस्याओं का समाधान युद्ध के मैदानों में नहीं निकलता है, वो टेबल पर चर्चा करके ही निकलता है।
As far as the Russia-Ukraine conflict is concerned, I'm very happy that President Trump has taken initiatives to restore peace and had telephone calls with President Putin and President Zelensky. The world had this thinking that India somehow is a neutral country in this whole process, but this is not true. India has a side, and that side is of peace. From the very first day, I have been talking about the importance of dialogue and diplomacy and a peaceful solution. And when I met President Putin in the presence of media, I had told him that this is not the era of war, and I have firm conviction that problems cannot be resolved on the battlefield. The two sides will have to come to the negotiating table.
शांति के हर प्रयास का हम समर्थन करते हैं, और राष्ट्रपति ट्रंप ने जो इनिशिएटिव लिया है, मैं उनका हर सख्त समर्थन करता हूं।
We support all efforts aimed at establishing peace.
Can you let him translate, please?
Trump has taken to welcome it and support it.
I just want to add to that. We had a very good phone call yesterday with President Putin. It lasted maybe an hour and a half. It was excellent, and I think we went a long way toward getting a solution to the horrible war where so many people are being killed, especially soldiers on the battlefield. At least 1.5 million soldiers have been killed on a ridiculous war that would have never happened if I were president. But we've got a long way to, I think we've got a long way to solving it. Tomorrow there's a meeting in Munich, and then next week there's a meeting in Saudi Arabia, not with myself or President Putin, but with top officials. And Ukraine will be a part of it too. And we're going to see if we can end that war. That war is a horrible war. It's a vicious, bloody war. We want to end it. To your other question, that U.S. attorney was actually fired. I don't know if he or she resigned, but that U.S. attorney was fired. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, what is the role the Prime Minister India to play vis-a-vis U.S. competition with China?
Say it.
What is the role that you expect India to play vis-a-vis U.S. competition with China and in your broader vision for peace in the Middle East?
US or China के competition?
Well, I think we're doing very well in our competition with everybody. I think you're going to see a nation that really is going forward at a very rapid pace. Our economy is going to be fantastic. We're doing things to make it that way. We announced some very big elements today of success. I call it an element of success. Reciprocal tariffs, so that somebody charges us, we charge them the same amount, which has never been done in our country before. We've always been taken advantage of by other countries, and we allowed that to happen foolishly, but we're not going to allow that any longer. So I think we're going to do very well. We've been doing they say the last 3 weeks was among the best 3 weeks ever for a start in a presidency. There's never been anything like it. And when you see what we've been able to do in 3 weeks, people are really amazed. Even the Prime Minister mentioned it. I think other countries are looking at it. But I just want to thank everybody for being here. This is a terrific man. We're going to make some wonderful trade deals for India and for the U.S. And thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Quickly, guys. Come on, please. Quickly out this way. Quickly, guys. Come on, quickly out this way.
We keep looking for points of history. I can point to one which I know of for sure. First time US President is taking questions in Hindi, of course being translated, in the White House. It's never happened before. My colleagues are, of course, are all there from India, and interesting occurrence right there. Okay, let's pick up this conversation because that's what's been said. That's the part of the pleasantries. Now, some serious issues have been asked and addressed. The primary one, of course, there being the position taken on Ukraine, where the Indian Prime Minister has said, we do not have a neutral position on Ukraine. We have a strong position towards the path of peace. This is what I've told President Putin, that this is not a time for war, and any initiatives taken by Donald Trump in Saudi Arabia to bring about peace is something that India firmly supports. Let me pick up that thought. Ambassador Kapoor.
Well, India has been saying that from day one, that till all channels of communication are exhausted, till the entire, Charter 5 of the UN Charter is also respected in terms of diplomacy, one should not engage in war. It is very unfortunate that war has happened in Ukraine, and India will have an important role to play in the entire war there also, because India is a great, procurer of energy from Russia, which is, refined, where value is added, and then a lot of that oil goes to Europe, and a lot of it goes to America and other countries.
Okay, just hold your thought. Let me get response from everybody on this issue, because that's the substantially most important thing that was said in this interaction. This is, like I said, the more it is a press interaction. I won't call it an informal interaction, but this is not a joint press briefing. We are expecting a joint statement shortly. Whether it will be just a joint statement or a joint press briefing, I can't tell you yet. I'm being told it will probably be a joint statement, but I'll let you know once we have information. Jordan, on the thought on Ukraine and Russia.
We'll see what ultimately happens. Of course, I didn't really hear any exact definitive solutions in terms of how the peace will emerge, what the conditions will be if a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine is signed. Does seem to be some support for the war ending, but the big ultimate question is, what are the borders going to look like? That's ultimately going to determine, one, if there's future war potentially, and on top of that, whether Ukraine will ultimately be satisfied. And I put satisfied in quotation marks with the solution. So, of course, territorial boundaries continue around the world to be a constant motivator for war. It remains yet to be seen how those territorial boundaries will be defined.
Okay, all right. Adrian Calamil, on what we heard, the substantive part on Ukraine.
I pretty much have to echo what Jordan just said. I don't know how the peace is going to be obtained. I think Putin needs to be shown that this is a very costly endeavor that he's gone into. I think he needs to pay a bit of a price for this. He can never, and also needs to be shown that he can never invade another sovereign nation in Europe. I also think that the United States can play a part in removing some of that energy dependence that India finds itself on with Russia, vis-a-vis Russia. And that's kind of, again, looking at the Islamic Republic, Russia, and China in one bucket that coordinate together. So, it's complicated, but ultimately this war needs to end. It never needed to start. It shouldn't have started. I think through appeasement and through weakness, it invites bad things. So let's hope that there's an end to this and that it's a favorable outcome for the Ukraine and that country is able to rebuild.
All right. Ambassador Bansal, do we have a role to play? It would seem probably not. The Ukrainians and Russians will have to sit on the table together at some point of time, and the intermediating authority is probably going to be the Trump administration. So, what you've heard the Indian Prime Minister say is, Donald Trump, go ahead with what we are doing, and if you need any support from us, you have it.
Is that for
General
me?
Bansal?
General Bansal.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's a very tricky thing in the sense because the terms and conditions put by Russia is very harsh in the sense they say that yes, whatever area they are occupying, they will keep it. They will have the talk will be after the election. They are not going to talk to President the Zelensky. So in that condition, if there is a puppet government and then there are further chances that he will invade or the Russia will invade other countries. So there is the apprehension amongst other European countries. So it appears to be a very difficult thing because so far the Zelensky is thinking that in lieu of Kursk, he wants his land back, maybe the Donetsk and this all that area, including Crimea, which is not going to happen. So it is very, very difficult that yes, this thing will come to an end. But definitely, it is true that there has been about 1.5 million soldiers from both sides, and really it is not a good thing for the Russia also. Russia never thought that this war will go for 3 years. Now Russia, which is an arms exporter, is getting arms from the North Korea, from Iran, even China, and asking for the soldiers from all over the world.
Yes, so but it is, let us not assume that that is not a conundrum. Of course, it's a major conundrum if you're sitting here in New Delhi. Yes, it is. That's just the factuality of life. We have a good association with the Americans, we have a good association with the Russians. But we primarily have to have a good association with ourselves. Let's be clear, that's how foreign policy works. There has to be a confluence of interests, and yes, India and America have a large confluence of interests. But does India have energy needs? Yes, so does Europe, which buys a lot of its oil and gas from Russia still. But there are issues here. Let me not ignore them. Dr. Sadhuru Nagao, let me get you back into this conversation. So, assuming we have taken a step forward, which is to say that we've got the pleasantries out of the way, we've got the immediate steps on the tariffs and the immigration out of the way. It now seems that the next port of call is going to be Ukraine. Do we see an end one way or the other?
Of course, there are many programs to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But the view from the US-India relations, both of the US and India want to end this war. Because if Russia continues to invade Ukraine, there is a big problem between US and India. The Russian side, Ukrainian side, which side you are? This is a question, continuous question if Russia continues to invade Ukraine. So that is the reason this issue is US-India relation issue. So both India and the US want to end this.
Okay, all right.
So this means they are both of two countries are same side.
Okay, stay with me. Let me get Dr. Rao into this conversation. Dr. Rao, good morning to you. Let me have a larger picture conversation on this, because how long do you think it's going to take us to navigate which seem to be the immediate bilateral priorities? Is to just the Trump agenda is immigration, is it, and its tariffs. Do you think this meeting and maybe a little bit of follow up from the relevant ministers will be enough, and then we can move on to larger issues?
Yes, good morning to all of you. Yes, I am quite optimistic that there will be progress on all these issues. If you have noticed that Modi has already sorted out progress with President Macron on issues that affect Indo-French relationship, and he has now gone on to this. I don't think tariff and immigration will be a huge problem, because there is quite a agreement between both sides even before Modi ji went to US, and I am sure that there will be major progress. India is now more concerned about the various technologies which India needs American help with, so that we can also progress in our development, both in armed forces and with the, things like artificial intelligence and chip manufacturing. So I think there will be a lot of understanding on that. And please do note that after the illegal immigrants have been sent out of US is really in need of skilled labor. And just like Israel and Taiwan have started officially getting manpower from India, I'm sure this will work out with US.
Okay, so there are lots of threads to pick up, and we can go in lots of tangents. Let me get Adrian back into this conversation. Adrian, let me pitch this from a different perspective. From the American point of view, all right, when they're looking at the world and they're saying, all right, we've got China to deal with, we have a border issue with Mexico we want to deal with, we have a trade issue on which we want to figure out Panama and Greenland, we have problems in Europe that we need to sort out, we have Ukraine, and we have Gaza, we have Iran. Where does India figure into this? Because one would assume, other than on China, on Ukraine, on Gaza, India is not on the US consideration, is it?
Well, so we're looking at all different parts of the globe where there's a Chinese influence. There's a influence from, we're looking at flashpoints where it's being dictated by Beijing, it's being dictated by Moscow, it's being dictated by Tehran. And this is, again, if we're looking at a world order, they call themselves the axis of resistance. And if we want to look at a series of democratically aligned countries, I think it does become a bit of an India problem, where if Russia, if Putin feels enabled and compelled that he can go and invade Ukraine, then everybody was asking themselves after October 7th, when's Xi going to make his play on Taiwan? Okay, or are they going to try something with China? And I know with India, and I know it's happened before. Modi's a great diplomat. He understands. Again, as I said before, he's in a dangerous neighborhood. But he's got to play the game a little more differently than the U.S., who is somewhat isolated from. I wouldn't say isolated, but we're removed from this to a degree. He's in a difficult position. We need to do everything we can to pull them away from this group of this BRICS group. The Islamabad, those type of countries.
Yes, I can tell you on face value that. 6-8 months ago, things were unpleasant in the last few months of the Biden presidency. Not to say that the entire Biden presidency was unpleasant. It certainly wasn't. A lot of things were, there is a larger issue here that transcends, for sure, issues that are coming up. So I'm putting that aside for a second. But there were issues, and that led to two big things closer to where I'm sitting. Number one, India and China ended their longest standing border standoff for the past 4 years, gun to gun, highest ever deployment on the India-Chinese border that I have seen the Indian armed forces put up. That ended, all right? And that happened because there were issues happening with the US. The secondary aspect was the BRICS meeting picked up pace, which is unpleasant if you're sitting in Washington, where we want to be friends of Washington and they want to be our friends. So you don't want to see that happening from that perspective onwards. So let me try to draw this together to where we are in the present moment, back to the present moment. Let me get Ambassador Kapoor back in. Ambassador Kapoor, let me pick up a different thread with you, because this question has been asked on Bangladesh, and it is a pretty cheeky question. Indian correspondent saying that the US deep state and George Soros Jr. were all involved in what happened in Bangladesh, and Donald Trump's response was, I'll leave Bangladesh to PM Modi. Now that could be, I'll leave it to him to talk about it, which is what I'm assuming it was, or it could be implied that I'll leave it to him to figure it out. Which do you think it was?
Well, I think for President Trump to make a statement that I will leave Bangladesh to Indian PM, Could have been either, but I would pitch for the latter in the sense that the deep state in the US wanted to draw away Bangladesh completely from Indian influence. They wanted to disrupt the entire political scenario there. They succeeded in that. And now President Trump realizes that it's become a very big mess. And even for the US to sort out that mess is not going to be easy. So it may mean that he would rather draw upon India's strengths in the region to deal with the Bangladesh problem and to see how to bring it back to an even keel. It's not going to be easy, considering the way the fundamentalist forces and the jihadi forces have gained traction there, and the radicalization that has happened in the Muslim population of Bangladesh, which is very unfortunate for that country in the sense that it was doing quite well economically, it was doing quite well politically, but suddenly everything has been thrown off the rails. So for any country to try to make an attempt to bring it back is not going to be easy. So US probably realizes that. US aid, incidentally, also I'm told, played an important role in that. About the other American actors who wanted, to get a piece of the Bangladeshi action in terms of getting an island of Bangladesh for a US base, etc. Lots of things transpired. The previous Prime Minister of Bangladesh did make some very revealing.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir, but we are being dictated to by live events as they are transpiring. I'm expecting a joint press conference or a reading of a joint statement to begin very, very shortly. So let me just get Ambassador Kapoor back in. Ambassador Kapoor, just back into the present moment. Now we are expecting that this is not going to be a damn squib. I think both sides want to set the agenda on a really positive note. And I think that conversation, as you well know, has already been had. They haven't decided what they'll be announcing in the last 10 minutes. They already knew what they were announcing. Maybe some spit and polish has been put in. But we can reasonably expect some things on defense, on tariff barriers, on Indian investments. Anything else that comes to your imagination, sir?
Well, I think there will be some, big announcements also of how the bilateral relationship is going to move ahead, how the bilateral relationship is going to impact the global stage, how the two countries are going to work together in the Indo-Pacific and in the other areas in terms of, jointly using their strengths to impact the world positively. So towards that end, some very practical sort of statements are going to be made by the two leaders. So you saw the chemistry was very good during this brief interaction that we saw on the screen just a few minutes back. The chemistry between the delegations has been very good because a lot of groundwork and a lot of spade work has happened in the preceding weeks. So all that will culminate in some good, sort of development, good progress, and some good announcements which are expected now.
Okay.